Why does life become silent right before everything changes? If your world is shrinking, if the people around you are fading like ghosts, if your routines are crumbling, and you feel profoundly, devastatingly alone. I need you to hear this. What you're experiencing is not punishment. It's not rejection. It's preparation. Carl Jung spent his entire life studying the patterns of the human psyche, and he discovered something that changes everything about how we understand isolation. He found that before any major transformation, before you step into the life you're meant to live, the soul deliberately withdraws. It pulls back from the noise, from the familiar faces, from everything that once felt like home. And it does this with surgical precision. This isn't random. It's not bad luck. It follows a law as old as consciousness itself. In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. Your isolation is following that order right now. Think about where you were just months ago, maybe a year ago. Your life was full, wasn't it? There were friends you saw constantly, routines that gave your day structure, relationships that even if they weren't perfect, at least made you feel like you belonged somewhere. Your phone used to ring. People used to reach out. You had a place in the world. And then something shifted. At first, it was barely noticeable. A friend stopped returning your calls. Plans fell through more often. Conversations that used to flow easily suddenly felt forced, like you were both speaking different languages. You'd show up to gatherings and feel like a stranger in your own life. The connections that once anchored you started to dissolve, not with explosions, but with quiet, confusing fade-outs. And now here you are, standing in a life that feels emptier than you ever thought possible. Wondering what you did wrong, wondering why everyone left, wondering if you'll ever belong anywhere again. But here's what Jung understood that most people miss entirely. This emptying isn't happening to you. It's happening for you. The universe, or whatever force orchestrates the deeper patterns of your soul's journey, is actively clearing the stage. It's removing everyone and everything that no longer aligns with the person you're becoming. Because the life you're being prepared for, the destiny that's waiting on the other side of this silence, it requires a completely different version of you. Not a broken version, not a lesser version, a truer version. And that version cannot emerge while you're still clinging to what no longer fits. This is what he called individuation. The process of becoming who you actually are, beneath all the roles you've played, beneath all the masks you've worn, to be loved, to be accepted, to simply survive in a world that never quite understood you. And this process, this transformation into your authentic self, it can only happen in one place: the wilderness, the inner desert, the profound, terrifying, sacred silence where you finally meet yourself. Right now, you're in that desert. And I know it feels like dying. I know the loneliness is crushing. I know you wake up some mornings and the weight of the emptiness makes it hard to breathe. But what if I told you that this very experience, this isolation that feels like the end of everything, is actually the beginning of the life you've been searching for your entire existence? What if the universe isn't isolating you to break you, but to forge you into someone capable of holding something real? Stay with me, because in the next 45 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why this had to happen. You're going to see the psychological architecture behind this isolation, and you're going to recognize that you're not being abandoned. You're being initiated. Before we go deeper into this journey, if these words are already resonating with something deep in your soul, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps this message reach other people who are walking through their own desert right now, wondering if they'll ever find their way home. Let me tell you what's really happening in this silence. There's a moment that probably stands out in your memory with painful clarity. The moment you realized that something fundamental had shifted. Maybe it was when you scrolled through your phone and realized you hadn't heard from anyone in days. Maybe it was when you stopped getting invited to things you used to be part of. Maybe it was the sudden awareness that the people you once talked to every day had become virtual strangers. The friends who used to check in, they stopped calling. The social invitations that once filled your calendar dried up completely. Even your family, the people who are supposed to be your constant, somehow feel different now. Distant. Like there's an invisible wall between you and them that nobody can explain. Your first instinct was probably to blame yourself. You thought you'd done something wrong. You replayed conversations in your head, searching for the moment you said the wrong thing or the moment you pushed people away. You wondered if you were too much or not enough, too intense or too withdrawn, too needy or too independent. But that's your ego talking. Your ego is designed to make sense of the world through cause and effect, through blame and responsibility. So when people disappear from your life, your ego immediately concludes that you're the problem. The soul sees it differently. The soul understands that you're not being rejected, you're being separated. And there's a massive difference between those two experiences. Rejection suggests you're not good enough. Separation suggests you've outgrown something that no longer serves your evolution. Think of it this way. There are phases in psychological development that look like death, but are actually metamorphosis. Jung studied alchemy not because he believed in turning lead into gold, but because the alchemical process perfectly mirrors what happens in the psyche during transformation. And one of the earliest stages in that process is called the nigredo, the blackening. It's the phase where everything false must die. Everything you've used to prop yourself up, everything you've leaned on for your sense of identity, everything inauthentic, it all has to dissolve. And this dissolution feels exactly like what you're experiencing right now. It feels like depression, like collapse, like the ground beneath your feet is turning to sand. But it's not depression in the clinical sense. It's decomposition. The old version of you, the one that was built on external validation and other people's expectations, and all the small ways you bent yourself to fit into spaces that were slowly suffocating you. That version is being composted, turned back into raw material so something new can grow. And the people who are leaving your life right now, they're not bad people. They're not villains in your story. They were essential to who you were. But you've changed. Your soul has expanded. Your frequency has shifted. And the contracts that once held you together, the unspoken agreements, the projections, the codependencies, they've expired. You might feel guilty about this. You might think you should try harder to maintain those connections, to be the person they remember, to keep things the way they were. But that would be like trying to force yourself back into clothes you outgrew years ago. It doesn't work. And more importantly, it betrays the work your soul is doing right now, because your soul is not interested in comfort. It's interested in truth. And the truth is that you're not the same person you were 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago. You've been through things. You've seen things about yourself and about the world that you can't unsee. You've touched depths that most people never reach because they're too afraid of what they'll find down there. And now those depths have changed you. They've given you a different kind of vision, a different kind of sensitivity. You can't participate in surface-level conversations anymore without feeling like you're betraying yourself. You can't pretend that everything is fine when you can feel the undercurrents that nobody else seems to notice. You can't keep showing up to dynamics that were built on who you used to be, not who you're becoming. So the universe is doing what you couldn't do yourself. It's removing the people who were connected to your old identity, not to hurt you, not to punish you, but to make space for what's trying to emerge. And yes, it's brutal. Yes, it feels like you're losing everything. Because in a very real sense, you are. You're losing the comfort of the familiar. You're losing the safety of being surrounded by people who knew you in a certain way. You're losing the version of yourself that knew how to navigate that world. But what you're gaining is something most people never find. You're gaining yourself. Right now, you're in what Jung called the inner wilderness. No distractions, no external validation. None of the familiar voices that used to tell you who you were and what you should want and how you should feel. Just you. Alone with your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own truth. And this wilderness is asking you a question that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Can you stay with yourself without running? Can you sit in your own presence without immediately reaching for your phone, for a distraction, for anything that will fill the silence? Most people can't. The moment the loneliness gets too loud, they panic. They download the dating app. They reach out to people they don't even like just to hear a voice. They throw themselves into work, into substances, into anything that will help them escape the deafening roar of their own emptiness. But you're still here. You're reading these words. You're sitting with the discomfort. And that very fact, that capacity to endure what most people flee from, that's changing you at a level you can't even see yet. Your energetic signature is shifting. That's not metaphysics or wishful thinking. It's psychological reality. The way you show up in the world, the frequency you broadcast, the kind of energy you emit, all of that is determined by your internal state. And for years, maybe your entire life, you've been broadcasting a frequency of need, of incompleteness, of please see me, please choose me, please tell me I'm enough. But in this isolation, something else is emerging. A quiet, centered presence. A sovereignty that doesn't need applause to know its own worth. An internal authority that's no longer looking outside itself for permission to exist. And this sovereignty, this new frequency, it changes everything. Because it acts like a filter. It no longer allows entry to people who are drawn to your wounds, to your neediness, to your desperation. It only resonates with people who recognize your wholeness. This is why the old crowd had to fall away. They weren't a match for who you're becoming. They were a match for who you used to be. And your soul in its infinite wisdom knows that you can't carry both versions into the future. You have to choose. And right now, whether you realize it or not, you're choosing yourself. Let me take you deeper into what's actually happening in this process. Because once you understand the mechanics of it, the pain starts to make sense. And when pain makes sense, it becomes bearable. What you're going through right now is an energetic detox. Your psyche is purging everything that doesn't belong to your authentic self. And just like a physical detox, where your body expels toxins and you feel worse before you feel better, this psychological purge is uncomfortable. It's disorienting. It feels like loss. But what are you actually losing? You're not losing people. You're losing codependent patterns. You're losing the addiction to external validation. You're losing relationships that were built on fear rather than freedom. You're losing the projections you placed on others, the fantasies you needed them to fulfill the roles you assigned them without their consent. And here's where it gets interesting, because most relationships aren't actually about the other person at all. They're about projection. Jung spent years exploring this concept in analytical psychology, and what he discovered was revolutionary. When we look at another person, we're not seeing them clearly. We're seeing our own psyche reflected back to us. We're seeing our needs, our wounds, our unlived potential, our rejected shadow. We meet someone and we think we love them for who they are, but really we love them for what they represent in our inner world. We love them for the parts of ourselves they're carrying. We love them for the holes they fill, the emptiness they distract us from, the version of ourselves they allow us to avoid. Let me give you a concrete example. Maybe you were drawn to someone because they seemed so confident, so sure of themselves. And you thought it was about them. But what was really happening is that you were projecting your own unlived confidence onto them. You You gave away that part of yourself and then became dependent on their presence to feel it. Or maybe you were attracted to someone's creativity, their spontaneity, their freedom. Not because you were genuinely seeing them, but because those were the exact qualities you'd suppressed in yourself. You were loving your own shadow, your own disowned potential reflected in another person's face. This is why breakups and friendship endings can feel so devastating. You're not just losing a person. You're losing all the parts of yourself you'd projected onto them. You're losing your externalized confidence, your outsourced joy, your delegated sense of aliveness. And suddenly you're left holding all of it yourself, and you don't know how because you never learned. You gave it away before you could integrate it. And this works fine for a while, until it doesn't. Until you start to wake up, until you begin the soul's journey toward integration and wholeness. And then those projections start to collapse. You start to see people as they actually are, not as you needed them to be. And often what you see is that the connection was never about genuine recognition. It was about need. This is happening to you right now in the isolation. Every person who's left, every relationship that's dissolved, it's forcing you to take back what you gave away. To own your confidence, to reclaim your creativity, to find your joy in yourself instead of in someone else's presence. And that process, that retrieval of your scattered psyche, it's what makes you whole. This is what's collapsing right now in your isolation. All those projections are coming back home. And you're being forced to confront what you were actually avoiding in yourself, what you were outsourcing to other people. Were you looking for someone to validate you because you couldn't validate yourself? Were you seeking approval because you didn't have your own internal authority? Were you chasing connection because you were running from the emptiness inside? These are hard questions. They require brutal honesty. But they're also the questions that set you free. Let me tell you what this looks like in practice. Maybe you're realizing that you stayed in a friendship for years, not because you genuinely enjoyed the person's company, but because their approval made you feel worthy. And without them, you're confronting the fact that you never believed in your own worth. That's painful. But it's also the doorway to building real self-worth that doesn't collapse the moment someone withdraws their validation. Or maybe you're seeing that you were in a relationship where you played small, where you dimmed your light, where you made yourself less threatening, less powerful, less you. And you told yourself it was compromise, it was love, it was being a good partner. But really, it was self-betrayal. And now that they're gone, you're facing the part of you that was willing to abandon yourself for the illusion of being chosen. That recognition burns, but it also liberates you from ever doing it again. This is shadow work in real time. This is what it means to integrate the parts of yourself you've been running from. The needy part, the desperate part, the part that would rather betray itself than be alone. You're not getting rid of these parts. You're acknowledging them, understanding them, and choosing not to let them drive your decisions anymore. Because as long as you're projecting your wholeness onto someone else, you can never actually be whole. As long as you need another person to complete you, you remain fractured. As long as your sense of self depends on external mirrors, you have no self at all. You're just a collection of reflections. The isolation is forcing you to take all those projections back. To own all the parts of yourself you rejected, all the needs you denied, all the shadows you refused to acknowledge. It's forcing you to become your own source of validation, your own authority, your own home. And this process, this reclamation of your psyche, it's what individuation actually means, not some abstract spiritual concept, but the very practical, very difficult work of becoming whole. Whole doesn't mean perfect. It means integrated. It means you've stopped dividing yourself into acceptable and unacceptable parts. It means you've stopped abandoning pieces of yourself to gain love. It means you've gathered all your fragments and said, "This is me." All of it. The light and the shadow. The strength and the vulnerability. The wisdom and the confusion. And here's the paradox. This work of becoming whole, it cannot be done in a relationship built on fusion or codependency. It can only be done in solitude. It can only be done when you're completely alone with yourself, with no one to perform for, no one to hide from no one, to distract you from the truth of who you actually are. This is the inner wilderness. And it's deeper than you thought it would be. You've probably noticed by now that loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is the feeling of being incomplete without others. It's the ache of separation from connection, from belonging, from being seen. Solitude is something else entirely. Solitude is the capacity to rest in your own presence, to be alone without feeling abandoned, to exist without needing constant external confirmation that you exist. Most people never learn the difference. They spend their entire lives running from solitude into the arms of loneliness, thinking that being around people will solve the emptiness inside. But it doesn't. It just delays the confrontation with that emptiness. You're not running anymore. You're standing in the middle of the wilderness, looking at your own emptiness directly. And you're discovering something that changes everything. It's not actually empty. What you thought was a void, what felt like nothingness, it's actually fullness. It's the presence of your own being. It's the self, to use his language. Not the ego, which is tiny and fragile and dependent on external feedback. But the self, the deeper center of your psyche, the part of you that was whole before you ever learned to fragment yourself for love. And here's what happens when you start to touch that self, when you start to rest in that deeper presence. Everything in your external world begins to shift. Not because you're manifesting or forcing or controlling, but because your energetic signature is different. You're operating from a completely different frequency now. Think about it like this. When you were desperate for connection, when you were broadcasting need, you attracted people who were also desperate. People who were also needy. People who were looking for someone to complete them, just like you were looking for someone to complete you. And what you created together was codependency masquerading as love. Two people drowning, grabbing onto each other, both sinking faster because neither had learned to swim on their own. But now that you've learned to rest in your own fullness, now that you've discovered you don't need saving, your frequency is calling something entirely different. You're not attracting rescuers or projects or people who need fixing. You're attracting wholeness. You're attracting people who have also done their work, who have also walked through their desert, who also understand that love is not about need, but about choice. This is what the universe is preparing you to meet. Not another person, not a specific destiny out there in the world, but the destiny that lives inside you. The person you were always meant to become. And to meet that person, you had to lose everyone else first. Because as long as your psyche was crowded with other voices, with other expectations, with other people's versions of who you should be, there was no room for your own truth to speak. Now there's room. Now there's silence. And in that silence, if you listen carefully, you can hear something you've never heard before. Your own voice. Not the voice that adapted and performed and people-pleased its way through life, but the voice that knows. The voice that has always known exactly who you are and what you're here to do. This voice is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't compete with the noise. It waits. It waits for moments exactly like this one, when everything else has fallen away and you're finally desperate enough to listen. And what it's telling you right now is this. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not being punished. You are in a process of becoming that requires this exact experience. The isolation, the loneliness, the stripping away of everything familiar. All of it is necessary. All of it is sacred. Because you're not just becoming a better version of yourself. You're becoming the version that's been waiting your entire life for you to clear enough space to emerge. The version that doesn't need permission, that doesn't apologize for existing, that doesn't shrink to make others comfortable. The version that stands in its own authority and says, "This is who I am, and if you can't meet me here, then we're not aligned." This is personal sovereignty, and it's not arrogance, it's not selfishness. It's the natural result of doing the inner work that most people avoid. It's what happens when you face your shadow, when you integrate your wounds, when you stop betraying yourself for the comfort of belonging. And this sovereignty, this hard-won wholeness, it changes your entire energetic signature. You're no longer sending out a signal of desperation. You're no longer broadcasting lack. You're emanating something completely different now. Fullness, presence, choice. And that frequency attracts a completely different reality than the one you've been living. But here's the fear that probably keeps you up at night. What if you do all this work, endure all this isolation, become whole, become sovereign, become everything you're supposed to be, and then no one comes? What if you emerge from the desert and there's still nobody there? That fear is real. It's valid. And I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that the universe guarantees you a specific outcome. There are no guarantees. The universe doesn't promise that a person will show up, that a calling will become clear, that your destiny will arrive wrapped in a bow. What it does promise is this: if and when something real arrives, you will be ready to recognize it. You will be ready to hold it. You will be ready to meet it with your full presence instead of your desperate need. That's the difference. That's what all of this is for. Not to guarantee the arrival, but to guarantee your capacity. And whether your destiny shows up as a conscious relationship, as a life purpose, as a creative calling, or as something you can't even imagine. Right now, one thing is absolutely certain. You will not miss it. Because you've developed the eyes to see what's real. There's a shift happening inside you that you might not fully recognize yet, but it's there. Subtle, profound, like the first hint of spring after a long winter. The anxiety that used to wake you up at 3 a.m, that constant hum of something's wrong, it's quieter now. Not gone, maybe, but definitely quieter. The urgency you felt for months, the desperate need to fix this, to make people come back to return to how things were, it's fading. Dissolving into something that feels more like acceptance, more like peace. You're starting to understand, really understand, that you don't need another person to be complete. Not as a concept you read in a book or heard in a video, but as a lived truth, a felt reality. You can breathe at your own rhythm now. You don't need someone else dictating the pace of your existence. This is the energetic shift that changes everything. And it's not something you forced or faked or manifested through willpower. It happened naturally, organically, as a result of staying present with yourself through all the discomfort. You didn't run. You didn't numb out. You stayed. And that staying rewired something fundamental in your psyche. Your energetic signature, the frequency you emit just by existing. It's different now. If someone met you today who knew you a year ago, they'd sense it immediately. There's a groundedness to you that wasn't there before. A centeredness. You take up space differently. Not aggressively, not apologetically, just naturally. You're no longer broadcasting need. You're no longer sending out that desperate signal of, please see me, please choose me, please tell me I matter. Instead, you're emanating something that can only be described as fullness. And that fullness is magnetic in a way neediness never was. Think about how this shows up in real life. Maybe you're in a career transition, and for the first time, you're not frantically applying to anything that will have you. You're being selective. You're asking yourself, does this align with who I actually am? Maybe you're post-breakup, and you're not immediately looking for the next person to fill the space. You're actually enjoying your own company. Maybe your friendships are changing, and instead of clinging desperately to people who are drifting, you're letting them go with grace, trusting that the right people will remain or arrive. This is integration. This is what happens when the philosophical understanding drops from your head into your body and becomes your lived reality. But let me be practical for a moment, because transformation isn't just about understanding. It's about application. There are things you can do right now to support this integration process and anchor the shifts that are happening. First, start writing. Get a journal and begin documenting this journey. Not for anyone else. For you. Write about what you're releasing. What old anchors are you letting go of? What patterns, what relationships, what versions of yourself are you leaving behind? Name them. Acknowledge them. Thank them for what they taught you. And then consciously release them. And then write about the space you're creating. What's emerging in the emptiness? What new possibilities are becoming visible? Now that you're not so cluttered with what doesn't belong, what does your life look like when you're no longer performing for an audience? When you're no longer contorting yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you? This isn't busy work. This is shadow work. This is the practical application of everything explored in analytical psychology. You're making the unconscious conscious. You're bringing what's hidden into the light. And that process, that deliberate examination of what's happening beneath the surface, it accelerates the transformation. Write about your dreams too. Dreams were everything to Jung, because he understood they were messages from the unconscious, from the parts of yourself that your waking mind refuses to acknowledge. Start keeping track of them. The recurring symbols are the emotions that linger when you wake, the strange scenes that don't make logical sense, but feel deeply meaningful. Your psyche is speaking to you constantly through dreams. Most people ignore this language completely. You don't have to be one of them. Here's another practice. Every day, sit in silence for just 10 minutes. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just you and your own presence. And at first, your mind will scream. It will produce every anxious thought, every worry, every doubt. Let it. Don't fight it. Just watch it like you're watching clouds pass through the sky. Because underneath all that noise, there's something else. A deeper awareness. A witness that's not caught up in the chaos. That witness is the self. The integrated center of your being. And the more you practice resting in its presence, the more you realize you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you're not even your story. You're the awareness that holds all of it. This changes everything. Because if you're not your story, then you can rewrite it. If you're not your past, then you're not trapped by it. If you're not your trauma, then it no longer defines you. You're free. And here's a practice that might feel uncomfortable, but is incredibly powerful. Start saying no. Practice setting boundaries with people who are used to you having none. Practice choosing yourself even when it disappoints others. Practice walking away from situations that drain you, even if walking away makes you look difficult or ungrateful or not nice. You've spent your whole life being nice, being accommodating, being the person who bends and flexes and never causes problems. And where did it get you to a place where you lost yourself completely trying to be everything for everyone else? The isolation is teaching you that your energy is finite, your time is precious, and you get to be selective about who and what gets access to you. That's not selfishness. That's personal sovereignty. That's self-respect. Now I need to be honest with you about something. This process isn't linear. You're going to have days where you feel completely aligned, where everything makes sense, where you can feel the transformation solidifying inside you. And then you're going to have days where you wake up and the loneliness is crushing again, where doubt floods back in, where you wonder if you're fooling yourself and nothing has actually changed. That's normal. That's part of integration. Growth doesn't move in a straight line. It spirals. You revisit old wounds, old fears, old patterns. But each time you revisit them, you're doing it from a slightly different place, a slightly more integrated place. And gradually the grip those old patterns have on you loosens. The key is not to interpret the difficult days as failure. They're not regression. They're part of the spiral. They're your psyche, giving you another opportunity to practice what you've learned, to choose differently, to respond from your new center instead of your old wounds. On those hard days, you might be tempted to reach out to people who are no longer good for you just to hear a familiar voice. You might want to dive into superficial connections just to escape the void. You might want to abandon the entire process and go back to the comfort of who you used to be. Don't. Stay with yourself. Return to your center. Remember why you're here. You're not enduring this isolation because you enjoy suffering. You're enduring it because you're being prepared for something that requires this exact level of inner strength, this exact level of sovereignty, this exact level of self-awareness. Every time you stay present with the discomfort, instead of running from it, you're building the foundation for a completely different kind of life. A life where you're not at the mercy of other people's approval. A life where your worth isn't determined by external validation. A life where you can be alone without being lonely, connected without being codependent, open without being desperate. And here's what you need to understand about the space that's been created in your life. It's not empty. It's sacred. As long as your days were filled with people who couldn't really see you, with relationships that didn't nourish you, with distractions that didn't fulfill you, or there was no room for what's real. The universe, in its infinite intelligence, had to create that space radically, not gently, because you wouldn't have done it yourself. You would have kept trying to make those old connections work. You would have kept showing up to dynamics that were slowly draining your life force. You would have kept sacrificing your truth for the illusion of belonging. But your soul had other plans. Your soul knew that the life waiting for you on the other side of this transformation requires clean space. It requires a stage that's been cleared of all the wrong actors, all the mismatched props, all the scripts that were never yours to begin with. And now, you have that space. Now you have room to breathe. Room to discover what you actually want instead of what you were conditioned to want. Room to hear your own voice instead of the chorus of expectations that used to drown it out. This is preparation. This is what the universe has been doing all along. Not isolating you as punishment, but isolating you as preparation. Preparing you to recognize synchronicity when it appears. Preparing you to trust the mysterious timing of your soul's journey. Preparing you to hold what's coming with steady hands instead of grasping desperation. There are signs that this preparation is nearing completion. You'll know because the transformation starts to stabilize. The old triggers that used to send you into spirals, they don't have the same power anymore. The voices of people who don't understand you, they don't shake your foundation like they used to. You're not performing anymore. You're not trying to convince anyone of your worth. You simply know it, quietly, certainly, without needing external confirmation. That knowing is personal sovereignty in its purest form. And once you have it, once it's rooted in your bones, your entire reality shifts. So what happens when destiny finally arrives? It doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It doesn't crash into your life like a tidal wave. It arrives quietly, naturally, like the most obvious thing in the world. Like something you've been expecting your entire life without knowing you were expecting it. And you'll recognize it, not by the fireworks, not by the drama, but by the deep cellular yes that rises up from somewhere beyond your thinking mind. A recognition that doesn't need to be analyzed or justified. You just know. The way you know your own name. The way you know the difference between truth and performance. This is what happens when two whole people meet each other. Not two halves searching for completion. Not two wounded people hoping the other will heal them. But two sovereign beings who have done their own work, walked their own deserts, faced their own shadows. And when they look at each other, what they see isn't a fantasy or a projection. They see reality. They see recognition. This is what is meant by the conjunctio, the sacred marriage. But it's not limited to romantic relationship. This principle applies to every authentic connection, every true calling, every real alignment that enters your life after transformation. Whether it's a person, a purpose, a creative path, or a completely new way of being in the world, you'll know it's real, because it won't ask you to fragment yourself. It won't require you to abandon parts of who you are. It will meet your wholeness with its own. And you'll notice something remarkable. The relationships and opportunities that show up now have a completely different quality than anything you've experienced before. There's no anxiety, no second guessing, no wondering if you're good enough or if they really see you, or if it's all going to fall apart the moment you show your real self. Because you're already showing your real self. That's all you have left to offer. The masks burned away in the desert. The personas died in the isolation. What remains is just you, raw and real, and entirely unfiltered. And the right people, the right opportunities, they don't want your masks anyway. They never did. They want what you spent your whole life hiding because you thought it was too much, too intense, too different. Turns out, it was exactly what they were looking for. Not to consume it, not to possess it, but to recognize it, to meet it, to dance with it. This is what synchronicity looks like in a transformed life. When you're aligned with your authentic self, when you're operating from personal sovereignty rather than desperate need, the universe responds differently. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. People appear at exactly the right moment. Opportunities align with an elegance that feels almost orchestrated. Not because you're manifesting or controlling, but because you're no longer blocking the natural flow with your resistance, your fear, your attachment to how you think things should be. But here's what I want you to understand, and this is crucial. The greatest destiny isn't the thing that arrives. It's who you became while you waited. It's the person standing here right now reading these words who survived the isolation and didn't lose themselves in the process. Who faced the emptiness and discovered fullness. Who walked through the darkness and found their own light. That person is the destiny. Everything else, everyone else who enters your life from this point forward, they're not completing you. They're sharing space with someone who is already complete. And that changes the entire nature of connection. Think about what this means for a conscious relationship, if that's what arrives. You're not entering it from need. You're entering it from choice. You don't need this person to validate you, to save you, to give your life meaning. You're choosing to share your already meaningful life with someone who adds to it, rather than filling a void in it. That's not settling. That's maturity. That's wisdom. That's the difference between codependency and true intimacy. Or maybe your destiny shows up as a calling, a creative project, a business, a mission that suddenly becomes crystal clear. And you're ready for it now in a way you never could have been before the isolation. Because you've developed the sovereignty to pursue it without needing everyone's approval. You've developed the self-trust to follow your own vision even when others don't understand it. You've developed the inner authority to lead yourself. Or maybe the destiny is even simpler and more profound than that. Maybe it's just the life you build on your own terms. A life where you're no longer performing for an invisible audience, where you're no longer waiting for permission to be yourself, where you wake up every morning and the first voice you hear isn't criticism or doubt, but your own quiet knowing that you're exactly where you need to be. This is the transformation that the isolation was preparing you for. Not a dramatic external change, but a fundamental internal shift that makes everything external fall into place differently. You weren't rejected. You were separated. Separated from what no longer served you so you could be refined into what's real. The universe respects you enough to prepare you for what's coming. It respects you enough not to send you into the next chapter of your life carrying all the baggage from the last one. It respects you enough to give you the space, the time, the solitude necessary to become who you need to be. And here's something that might surprise you. The isolation doesn't end the moment someone walks into your life or a new opportunity appears. The capacity for solitude, for resting in your own presence, that becomes a permanent part of who you are now. You don't lose it. You carry it with you. And it becomes your greatest strength in any relationship, any endeavor, any challenge you face. Because you know now in your bones that you don't need anything external to be whole. You can appreciate connection without clinging to it. You can enjoy partnership without losing yourself in it. You can pursue opportunities without attaching your worth to the outcome. This is freedom. Real freedom. Real. Not the kind that comes from having no commitments or responsibilities, but the kind that comes from knowing that no matter what happens externally, you have yourself. And you're not going anywhere. There's a beautiful paradox in this. The moment you stop needing people, you become capable of truly loving them. The moment you stop needing validation, you become capable of genuinely appreciating it when it comes. The moment you stop desperately seeking your destiny, you become ready to recognize it when it arrives. This is the gift of the desert. This is what the universe was preparing you for all along. And now you're almost there. You can feel it. The transformation is stabilizing. The new frequency is becoming your default. The sovereignty is no longer something you're trying to practice. It's just who you are now. The people who knew you before, they might not recognize you anymore. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You make decisions differently. You're not seeking approval before you move. You're not apologizing for taking up space. You're not explaining yourself to people who haven't earned the right to your inner world. And this might make some people uncomfortable. That's okay. You're not here to make everyone comfortable anymore. You're here to live in your truth. The desert is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of everything that truly matters. It's the threshold between the life you inherited and the life you're creating. Between who you were told to be and who you actually are. Between surviving and truly living. Look at how far you've come. You survived every moment you thought would break you. You endured loneliness that would have sent most people running back to what's comfortable. You sat with your shadow and didn't abandon yourself. You faced your emptiness and found your fullness. You lost everything that was keeping you small and discovered everything that makes you whole. That's not a small thing. That's everything. And whether someone walks into your life tomorrow or a year from now or never, you have already won. Because you reclaimed yourself. You gathered all your scattered pieces and said, "This is me, and I'm enough." You stopped waiting for the world to give you permission to exist, and you gave it to yourself. That's the real victory. That's the transformation that makes every other transformation possible. The universe isolated you, not to break you, but to show you that you were never actually broken. Just buried. under expectations, under trauma, under roles that were never yours. And the isolation was the excavation, the careful, painful, necessary removal of everything that wasn't you, so that what is you could finally breathe. And now you're breathing. On your own rhythm, in your own truth, standing in your own presence without apology. This is personal sovereignty. This is the soul's journey completed, not finished because the journey never truly ends, but completed in the sense that you've arrived at yourself. And from here, everything is different. So trust this. Trust the process, even when it doesn't make sense. Trust the silence, even when it's deafening. Trust that you're not being abandoned, you're being transformed. And that transformation, as brutal as it's been, is the most sacred gift you'll ever receive. Because on the other side of it, you don't just find destiny, you become it. If this message resonated with your soul, if you see yourself in this journey, I want to hear from you. Share in the comments what this isolation has been teaching you. What are you releasing? What are you discovering? What's emerging in the space that was created? Your story matters. Your experience matters. And sharing it helps all of us understand that we're not walking this path alone. And if you want to continue exploring these depths, if you want more content that honors the complexity of the soul's journey and doesn't offer quick fixes but real transformation, subscribe to this channel. Because this work, this deep psychological and spiritual work, it changes everything. And you deserve content that meets you in your depth, not just on the surface. The desert is sacred ground, and you're standing on it right now. Not lost, not abandoned, but exactly where you need to be, becoming exactly who you were always meant to become. Trust that.